Hello and welcome back to YCS 200 here in Utrecht. I'm still here with Matthew Bell.
Still standing.
Still standing? Well, we don't stand here the whole time between the rounds.
No, not exactly, but I mean in general, we've got another 5 rounds to go after this, so we've got a long day. Emotionally, I'm still standing.
Okay, good.
Like
Just wanted to check. Is that a thing?
There's a song.
Go.
I'm still standing. I don't know the rest of the words, but the tune is super catchy.
Okay. Okay, so back to Yu-Gi-Oh! We're here in round 5. That's pretty... We're rocking through the day at this point. It's round 5.
4 more rounds. I think I said 5. But this match is going to be super interesting. We've got Cosmo that's performing extremely well, and it's going to be facing off against Sky Striker.
Yeah, and oddly enough, they actually know what each other are playing because they were both sat next to each other in the last round, which is
you just kind of like, as you're winning your game, you glance over and go, see you next round.
Hope I don't see that for the
if
rest of the
If I was a Sky Striker player, that's probably what I'd be thinking. I'd be like, hold on, let's go through my deck. Dark Destroyer. That was a pretty good card.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't target it at all.
Yeah. All of my cards say the word target. This is going to be problematic.
Yeah, it'll be super interesting to see how this actually plays out. I think it favors the Cosmo. Although when we check the stats, the matchup has occurred how many times?
It's a very small number of times. Yeah, really small.
But it thought it was 50-50, which is possible. There's about 27 Cosmo players, I think, in the tournament.
Yeah, not a lot.
So we'll see if the stats not particularly useful on our end, but I think based on the theory that Cosmo should be favoured.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Sky Strikers generally is more of a controlling type deck, and Cosmo really only need a couple of cards and not a lot of actions to get a huge monster on the board.
Cosmo just comes in and you go like, okay, I'm going to play this and I'm going to go for this and then I'm going to set up this combo, and Cosmo's just like, pew pew pew, laser ships, and just blows away all your stuff. You're like, oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
Game 2?
Bad times. Well, let's see if Lucien Hauer, who's in our feature match, can make a difference to that win rate. We'll take it over to the guys.
Yeah, it all but sounds like a foregone conclusion in this match. Would you agree that the Cosmo player is that much favored?
I think it's quite sort of... Cosmo's had this thing where it's quite they're ships. They stick, but then they don't necessarily have the tools to be dealing with so something like the Sky Striker Ray is just going to keep coming back, and I'm not sure they have that efficient a way of dealing with it.
So you're saying if Sky Striker were to go first and
I think we can
something?
see a sort of standstill, which has traditionally happened when like Cosmo used to play Burning Abyss, where like the Cosmo deck couldn't really do anything with Beatrice, but then the Burning Abyss deck couldn't really do anything to a Dark Destroyer, so they just kind of sit there and go, what do I do?
Okay. So it could be a lot more interesting than we might have.
Oh yeah, I
it
think
sounded
there could be some very interesting situations. I can't read German all that well, so I don't know whether there's a Borrel load in the extra deck of the Sky Striker.
I think even in German, this is... Oh no, this is not it. Yeah, we're going to try and figure that out. Sometimes it's not the problem that it's German, sometimes the problem is the handwriting. This would be one of those cases.
Borrel might be one of those cards that could swing the matchup, because it's the most efficient way, I think, of getting rid of Dark Destroyer. But other than that, I can't really see any way for the Sky Striker deck to deal with a Dark Destroyer.
Well, I mean, when they sat down, Marvin was like, well, this is going to be interesting, as in, I lost this. He didn't sound like he believed, like...
I mean, it's probably just not a matchup he's familiar with at all.
He doesn't seem very happy. But then again, we've seen Marvin Weber before at the top table a couple of times, and he likes to, like...
downplay himself
Yeah,
a bit,
exactly. He's like, yeah, I want to be the underdog in this match, even when he isn't.
I mean, given he's piloting the most represented deck, I don't think you'd ever call Sky Striker the underdog.
Exactly. So let's see how that plays out at the feature match table in round 5 of YCS Utrecht. Let's take you guys there. Oh, we can't. All right. We are having some technical difficulties, which means we might have to restart our server that is allowing you guys to see all of the cards that are on the field in these matches. So I'm just going to try and restart that.
Maybe information?
Yeah. So we can bring up the top tables in this round for you guys, because then you're going to see what is happening at the top of the field. So this is currently the top tables. These are tables 1 till 5. And
well, it's quite interesting to have an other on table 1 still. Be interested to hear what the other deck is, but I guess we don't know.
Yeah, we sometimes it is a deck that is not among the 20 or 30 categories that we usually use. that we usually use for any given tournament. So then if it's a deck that used to be popular like a while ago, it just gets
Just
filed
reappeared.
under other. Yeah. So sometimes it's not that we actually don't know. It's like we know what it is, but we just have to categorize it as other.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
want that many different types of deck, I guess.
I do see a lot of Sky Striker Pure
There are, yeah, I can see quite a few there.
on almost every single table except for the first table.
Well, it could be, you know, someone could have just snuck under the radar and called their Sky Striker deck an other deck.
Yeah, and the names that I remember here, at least one of them is Adam Hayek. I don't want to butcher it. I think Slovenian player. I'm so sorry if that is incorrect. We featured him before. He did rather well. I think it was in Prague. If we move down the ranks a tiny little bit, we see James Woodward, first representative from the UK at the top tables.
Jonas Kerschel, is that?
Jonas Kerschel, yeah.
Who
He
won the
did-
German Nationals this year?
I don't think he went all the way. I'm so confused.
Oh, maybe Tayfun won. Maybe he came second.
He definitely did
Yes.
well. Let's just agree he did well.
Well, they were in the final.
Then we see Din Khan Farm on table number 8, who has been putting in a number of really good results. I think that was starting in Prague last year, and ever since we've seen him a couple of times near the top of the field. Steffen Eichelberger is a guy that has been in the tops a couple of times at table 9, playing Goki this weekend, and I think that's the first Goki deck among the top
I mean,
tables.
Goki's not that well represented, yeah. We've got Erikos Beck, who won the Greek Nationals one year, I think.
Yeah, let's bring up the next couple of tables. There we go. Table number 12 is Erikos that you just mentioned.
A Pendulum deck. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, there is still room apparently among those top tables for a couple of players that are going with something that is a bit more on the surprising side of things. So if we move further down, here we see Kevin Stemlali, a name that rings a bell, as well as Tom Feargoods. These guys didn't necessarily win one of the large tournaments, but they also
he
have
appeared
been...
in the top cut of the European WCQ this year.
Yeah, and don't be fooled even if somebody's not playing at table number 1. That doesn't mean that they couldn't be among the top 5 players in the standings or
Yeah,
something like
definitely
that.
at this stage in the tournament. Like there'll be
Yeah.
a lot of players who have not dropped a game.
Yeah,
Like our feature match.
exactly. These
Players.
guys popping up here, table 25. Jake Quincy also among the top players, but of course it's very early to tell whether the tiebreakers of these guys are going to go up or down.
You would assume all of these players are doing quite well if they're on the top. Yeah, all of
reasonably
these
well.
players not dropped a game yet.
I think this weekend it's all about having a single-digit table number. If you're playing among the
well,
first...
single digit's pretty good, yeah,
Yeah.
but you can't really guarantee that.
Yeah, but then you're definitely in competition for a very long time to end up in the top cut. Here's another...
A few more well-known British players there, Marcus Patel and Jordan Gallagher.
Yeah, and 2 German guys with Alpay Engen and Alexander Schmidt. Alexander Schmidt not really on the international scene, but like in Germany he had a couple of really good results. He's got a YouTube channel where he's very active, and people are, the Germans at least, they like to watch that. I don't think the Americans like to watch that, or anybody else for that matter, but the Germans are really happy with his content for the most part.
Jean-Luc Bernard, who won the Belgian National Championships.
That would be on the next set of
Yep.
tables. So, and there another name that I recognize is Max van Nevesel from Belgium, also also did well a couple of times. The first time ever he did well was with a creative deck, and then we featured him again because he had this name recognition of sorts. And
Oh yeah, it's probably not a name you forget.
this is one of it's
That
one of those
long
things
one.
like you only have to do once. You only have to do well once
And have a memorable name.
Exactly, and then if you're lucky enough, you might end up in the
Hey,
feature
look,
match every once in a
Goki
while.
has popped up,
So this
but it's
is
still not beaten Dinosaur.
So this is the start of the
That-
first day. Sorry.
That is shocking.
This is the start of the day. This is the initial metagame breakdown. The numbers have shifted a tiny little bit when you compare it to what we talked about earlier, because more of the deck types have been entered into our software. So after 5 rounds, don't get a heart attack or anything. We see that a couple of things have shifted a tiny little bit.
But it doesn't seem to have affected the order.
Exactly. I was about to say that. Trickster and Invoked Magnite are now head-to-head. At the beginning of the day, it was 180 players Trickster and 166 players Invoked Magnite. So in terms of relative numbers, Invoked Magnite is doing it.
Yeah, they do seem to be in kind of groups, don't they? There's Sky Striker, which is almost double True Draco and Altergeist.
Yeah, and that wasn't the case at the very beginning. Well, almost the same actually, with 430 to 230. Also almost double.
Yeah, and then there's Trickstar and Invoke Mech Knight who are on exactly the same, and then there's another group, Dinosaur, Burning Abyss, and Goki who are on about 60.
Yeah. And out of all of those,
Pretty spread field.
yeah, the biggest surprise there, which we mentioned earlier when we had the feature match with Goki, was that there are not more Goki players.
That honestly, that did surprise me quite a bit, because I thought it was up there for one of the represented decks before.
And didn't really get hit.
And then, I mean, it got hit a bit. I mean, the Goblin is definitely a big hit, and the Invoker on the, which have both been put to 0.
Yeah.
But I honestly thought, considering it was one of the most powerful decks before the ban list, and it wasn't like, it wasn't an irrelevant ban list, but it was definitely a fairly light ban list.
Yeah.
They're sort of cards that are used, but they're not the centerpiece of the Goki combos. So you would have thought that it would have just sort of carried over a bit.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to have been the case in people's opinions.
Okay, here we can see what the day has been like so far for Lucien Hauer. Of course, the first 4 rounds all wins, played against 2 other decks, so also some rogue decks. And then in round number 3, one of the more popular choices, Robbie Hill playing True Draco, which Lucien also was able to overcome. And then last round was the first time he did actually go up against Sky Striker Pure, against Michael Punzi, and also won that match. So that is probably when Marvin actually figured out that Lucien is playing Cosmo, and he might have even seen how that whole entire match went down, and he's like, okay, I don't want to get paired against this guy.
It's an interesting one, because obviously Cosmo got their little buff on the ban list of Dark Destroyer to 2, but it's probably more of a, oh yeah, why don't we try out Cosmo again? Because it's only like one card that you've got one extra copy of. I mean, it's obviously one of the best cards in the deck.
Yeah.
But it's not going to change how you play the deck, really, just having that one extra copy.
Right.
Unless you feel like you can now include like Pot of Desires, which maybe you couldn't do before because you were too scared to banish your one Dark Destroyer, but I'm not sure Pot of Desires is in the deck.
So
regardless,
we're going to get them back very soon, those deck lists. Now here's the player match history from Marvin Weber, who started the day with a mirror match against Simon Meyer, won that one, and then went on a roll with beating Altergeist, then Sky Striker Pure again in another mirror match, and then Uros Pavlovich with Burning Abyss. So he has gone up
he's had
against
a fair like meta run so far.
It's not as roguish as what we saw in Lucien's case.
Yeah, no others.
No others, no.
None of those mysterious
all of that is pretty straightforward, and now he's playing against a deck that he didn't really prepare for, I guess. Although now he's had a bit of time to...
He's had time to mentally prepare, at least, yeah. But I mean, not...
And that's one of those things at these larger events. I mean, you have been there. How do you stay at the top of your game over the course of the entire day?
Honestly, it's quite hard, because you don't really have you don't have a break. You don't have a set break. I mean, you've got this kind of waiting time, but you don't know how long it's going to be, so you have to like judge, okay, do I have enough time to go out and get some food? That's the challenging question. You don't want to come back late for the round.
I remember there was one guy in the UK who was like the most popular player out of all of them, because he always brings like a backpack with snacks and Red Bulls.
That sounds like a great way to become popular, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's definitely, if you don't know how else to pull it off, like how to make friends and influence people, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Edition of that best-selling book.
Have some food,
would be bring a backpack full of food, yeah.
I mean, one good thing to do is try just win one of your rounds in about 20 minutes and then just go.
Yeah, so basically it's like play an OTK deck.
The trick to doing that's why you bring Goki, is because you know your rounds over and done very fast. Whereas if you play Sky Striker, and you play that Sky Striker mirror match, I think they're a bit well known for taking a bit more time than the Goki.
Yeah. So
Goki matchups.
After what we've seen so far in our first 4 rounds today, what do you think is the perfect choice for the weekend in terms of decks?
I'm still going to stick with my choice of Goki for the time being. I suppose I should stick with it the whole time, because then I wouldn't have really made that much of a decision before.
Yeah.
But given I think it's a powerful deck, and everyone else seems to not think it's a powerful deck.
Yeah.
That seems like
the numbers indicate that, yeah.
A good choice. If it's not very popular and people aren't necessarily prepared for it, people are dropping hand traps out the main deck. And we saw, like, it had probably the most emphatic win so far that we've seen on the stream, where his opponent didn't really get much of a chance to do anything.
Exactly. There was no point in that feature match where it looked like, okay, now the tides are going to be turning or something like that. It seemed like he was in control from first very moment on, and just went with it.
Yeah. I mean, we saw the Sky Striker. I mean, there was only the one round, but you could tell that his opponent, the opponent of the Sky Striker deck, was extremely prepared to face Sky Striker. He knew exactly what was going to happen. He had a game plan, and it was executed, and
all of that
was it.
to the best of his abilities. All right, guys, we did it. We got everything in place now. With that, we don't want to keep you any longer. Let's take you to the feature match table and get our game on. All right, here's a familiar view with Marvin Weber on the left in the feature match, Lucien Hauer on the right.
So
both of these guys had to wait a little bit longer to get this game started. I think they mentally prepared for this. Both of them have been in an advantageous position in a tournament before. Both of them have like made it to the top card. Marvin is the one who's come like the closest to winning something. I'm not sure. Did Marvin actually win like a big event? I don't think so.
I don't know. It's interesting to me to see the Cosmo deck electing to go second. So you can see that with the 3 evenly matched in the main deck, and the fact that I saw him win the dice roll and choose to go second. And he's included the copies of Psyframe Gear Gamma, which is a card that people like going second, but unfortunately for him, he's picked up the one copy. It looks very much like a Psyframe Gear Driver, which is the one that you really don't want to draw. And he's main decking Cyber Dragon as well.
And Marvin looks tired. This game has just started and he's already looking like he's went through a marathon or something. Okay, so he's going for that all-important field spell. Like, this is one of the first decks that benefited from a tier 1 field spell card. Before that we saw like cute field spell cards. Every once in a while there were...
I would say there have been some very powerful field spells.
No, I mean, but Cosmo is like one of those where...
Oh, you mean Cosmo? Oh, sorry, I thought you were saying Sky Striker.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
yeah, no, this is the Sky Striker.
I just saw the terraforming in my brain went to field spell cards, and then I forgot whose turn it is, to be honest.
No. I was going to say, I think a lot of decks have used field spells before Sky Striker.
Would you agree that Cosmo is one of the first with a very powerful field spell?
I'd have to know my history better than that. I mean, I think Monarchs had Domain about the same time, which was a pretty powerful card, but Cosmo, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Cosmo were around before Monarchs. Well, there was some variant of Monarchs before Cosmo, but not the ones we know and love today.
We do know and love them?
We do know and love them. I mean, I'm not sure that they're seeing that much love at the moment because Pantheism is still at 1 copy. So it looks like he's just dumping the Eagle Booster into the graveyard so he can get the draw off engage. And I think... Yeah, it seems like a reasonable thing to do. You're just trading it for another card and putting a spell in your graveyard all at the same time.
Do you always do that, or do you only do it when you know I need certain cards in this particular matchup?
I think just putting the 3rd spell in the graveyard kind of for free. I mean, you wouldn't do it if it wasn't the 3rd spell, because the 3rd spell is the one that gets you the draw. And the fact that you're then going to be able to use Kagari and use the engage again. So he's effectively used that Eagle Booster and turned it into a Pot of Greed, which sounds like a fairly good trade to me.
Turning any card into a Pot of Greed sounds like a good trade.
Well, unless that card is
game-winning.
Card Destruction. Maybe Card Destruction is more impactful. Or Grass, but Grass is banned, so...
So Marvin's still not looking like he's happy about this?
It's not quite come up what's in the hand of Marvin yet.
Yes, we're actually waiting for that.
So
maybe we need to reload that again.
It looks like he's got... he's got his engage back. He's going to be able to proc the multi-roll to set the engage. There's quite a nice interaction. You can obviously set the engage off multi-roll before using the effect of Shizuku. So you can search another copy of engage if you want to, with the Shizuku getting around the fact that you've already used an engage, and Shizuku's not supposed to be able to search cards that you've already used. I think this is honestly one of the best starts you can have for pure Sky Striker, when you're getting to use that engage to draw a card on your very first turn. It's not really something they're set up to do at all.
Right, and here we have the hand.
And we have the hand.
Yeah, it's almost like magic.
Excellent, that is like magic. Okay, so he's got an Eagle Booster, he's got an Anchor. I don't know what more you want, really, for the Sky Striker deck. Again, this is pretty close to perfect, and we've seen them do this a number of times, and then you sort of question the other player, can you do anything?
Have we seen this card that many times before? No.
Which card?
The Sky Striker Mech Modules multi-roll.
Multi-roll. I think multi-roll is a card that's gone up in popularity a bit, because in those long games where both players have accumulated, the more resources both players have, the better multi-roll is, because it has this effect that stops your opponent from responding to your cards. So if you're activating like 4 or 5 cards, the fact they can't respond to all of them, there's quite a lot of little tricks that you can play with the multi-role. But in particular, it's just quite threatening. So if your opponent wants, if you've got like a Twin Twister, you can just activate and they can't chain any of the cards. That makes, imagine if Twin Twister said that on the card, your opponent can't respond to this. It would just be insane.
Yeah,
and then multi-role
be insane.
tacks that effect on. So it's a pretty important card in the Sky Striker mirror match for the second effect of recycling your resources as well.
All right, so trying to bring up the cards in hand for Lucien again.
So
I know this worked before.
He's started with Cyber Dragon, and now he's changed his mind about whether he wants to fuse away his opponent's monster, or maybe the coverage guys are telling him to slow down a bit so they can see all of his cards before he carries on his turn.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain we're going to have them in just a second again.
I can see a Monster Reborn, an Emergency Teleport. I think I can't see what the other cards are quite yet. An Infinite Impermanence. Interesting that he chose not to use that on the Kagari, which was going to add back an engage for a search and a draw. I don't know what better use he's hoping.
Yeah, it's funnily enough, when he said that, immediately in the same very moment on the chat, people were saying, why is he not using it for that very card?
I'm not sure what you want, what else you want to do with the card in this matchup.
Right.
But I guess we'll see. I mean, he's not used it, so maybe he's got a plan. He might be saving it for saying, look, I'm going to set up this big board, and you're probably not going to have a very good answer to it, so I'm just going to wait and see if you actually have an answer, and then I'll have impermanence for that answer.
Okay, I got it. We now got all the cards in hand
We've
for
got
Lucien.
all the cards.
We got all the cards on the table for Marvin.
Excellent.
3 times was the charm indeed. So now we got perfect information again, and you can go back to your real occupation as a fortune teller.
I mean, it was an interesting choice to Widow Anchor that. So normally you wouldn't really want to Widow Anchor a monster that has a chainable effect which banishes it from the field. But with Farm Girl, it's just so threatening that you have to.
Yeah.
Because Farm Girl searching Dark Destroyer is really not something you want to see happen. So you just have to say, all right, I'll Widow Anchor it. He might chain it, but whatever.
The other thing is, I would be extremely surprised if Lucien hadn't tested this matchup, like start to finish.
Oh yeah,
a
this is
million
definitely
times.
a matchup he wants.
Like, I cannot imagine that he's doing any obvious mistakes here.
Yeah, I think it's just not panned out well. He's drawn the driver, which is just a dead card. It's just that risk you take of when you want to include the powerful hand trap Gamma, then you have to play the driver, and then if you draw the driver, it doesn't do anything. It's looking like quite a good situation for Marvin, because unfortunately Lucien's not really got anything going. You can see he's got no Cosmo cards left in his hand, so if you're playing a Cosmo deck and you've not got any Cosmo cards, that's not great, really.
I have to say, this is a bit like a deja vu, because I remember having Marvin Weber in feature matches before where he complained a lot prior to the match, and then once the match was underway, things were going his way, and he didn't really have any reason to complain.
I think some of the things like decks, the reason some decks don't perform as well as you want is because you kind of have to assemble the pieces. So Cosmo need their Cosmo, they need a pilot, which is one of the psychic monsters.
You're not talking about the player playing the deck.
No, they need one of the pilots and one of the ships.
Yeah,
and
pilots
in this case, he
4
drew,
stars or lower, ships are anything above.
He drew the emergency teleport, which is a pilot. It searches any psychic monster, but was not able to use it to fetch a ship. So normally you might be able to get the tin can and get a ship, but in this case there was the Widow Anchor, which was going to negate that.
This would be so cool if this card had a search card that says something like pilot recruitment, something like that, and you can get
maybe.
level 4 lower Cosmo card.
Yeah, but this is the problem when your deck requires something like that. So people might look at the output and say, okay, Dark Destroyer, what an amazing card, no one can kill it. But you actually, how often are you going to get the Dark Destroyer on the field where you've got 2 Dark Destroyers and then you've got however many pilots you have. So if you then look at the chances of actually opening that, you've got to say, well, how many games is that going to happen?
Right.
And it's not happened for him this game, unfortunately.
No. Marvin's got so many cards in hand.
Oh god, this is what happens when Sky Striker they kind of do their first turn and they say, you know what, you're going to kill me. If not,
I'm just going to go nuts.
I mean, he's not going to kill him this turn, I don't think. But I mean, Sky Striker doesn't really include any ways to kill the opponent, but they just say, well, I don't really have to, They're not going to kill me.
I'm just going to grind my way to victory.
I'm going to have many more cards than you.
A death by 1,000 knives is what we called it earlier.
We're just going to poke him, do some damage. I mean, Boral Sword is a good card, which helps Sky Striker output a lot more damage than they used to be able to. However, the way Sky Striker gets monsters on the field, now that they've only got one copy of drones, is to use Widow Anchor and Shark Cannon to take your opponent's high link monsters.
Yep.
Well, link monsters with a higher rating than 1, at least. And he's not going to be able to do that this time because Lucien's not played any of them.
This is also the Boral Sword that you just mentioned is the first card in the extra deck of Marvin.
Yeah.
And there is no other Boral Load or Boral something.
There is no Boral Load. Well, in this case, it's not. The Boral Load is there to be a very effective. If it was there, it would be a very, very effective out to the ship, any big ship, because it takes it and then it sends it to the graveyard, so it doesn't even trigger the destroyed, banish, search effect.
And quite a few cards in Marvin's graveyard. Like, his deck is really on a roll here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Definitely doing what
he's
it's
got
supposed to
everything
do.
he can, and now if you think about what Goki can do with only 2 cards and how much damage they could achieve, this is like Sky Striker's got all the cards and he's trying to now leverage it into as much damage as he can, and even so, it's still not actually that much.
When do you give up field control for damage? Is there a point where you're like, okay, now I need to shift this?
I think you just do it when you have game with Sky Striker.
Okay.
It might be that he has game, so I think maybe he will, so he can now normal summon, he can use the effect of multi-roll on the field spell to summon a ray from his deck, and then normal summon another ray, and then the Boral Sword has 2 attacks, so that should be 9,000 damage. I assume that's what's happening here. So, it requires to be honest, the Sky Striker deck in this situation doesn't really need to OTK their opponent. However, you might as well if you can.
If you can, yeah.
But it required him to use a lot of cards up in order to do it, but
he
why
can
not?
and he will, and that gives him
yeah.
the first win in this match. Marvin Weber sat down, said I got no chance to win this, and now he's proving himself wrong and all of his non-believers.
Sure, he won't be that upset about it.
No, he won't. I think he's going to be okay with this. This is like filling out a lottery slip and being like, I'm not going to win anyway, and then you walk away with the big prize, and you're like, yeah, okay, I take it. All right, so 1-0 for him. Lucien already had a couple of cards in his main deck that traditionally end up in the side deck, as the aforementioned evenly matched, for example. So his deck is already designed to counter things and go second, basically. What is he now going to do now that he has the chance to either go first or second?
Honestly, I can't tell you. I think it might be that he puts the Thunder King Ryos in, decides to go first. So he might be playing a tricky game where you let your opponent... He might decide whether he wants to go first or second, depending on whether he's shown his opponent his strategy. So if he's already said he's going to go second, then maybe your opponent thinks, he made me go second the first time, he's probably going to do that again.
Right.
And then you go, haha, I'm going to side in Thunder Kings and go first.
The most important part of that sentence was
to go, haha. Yeah.
Right.
But honestly, again, because most people are probably going to have built their decks to face off against Sky Striker, so when they're playing against Sky Striker, it's unlikely they're going to have that many cards in their side deck for Sky Striker, because those cards are probably going to have migrated into the main deck beforehand.
Yeah.
So I can't really see anything in the side deck. Maybe the Hey Trunade, but I can't read what the card above. Can you translate the card above Hey Trunade for me? Resident Tribute.
Oh, this is Torrential Tribute.
Torrential Tribute. I probably should have been able to get that. No, I don't think that's a very helpful card against Sky Striker.
Reisende Tribute.
And the card below Thunder King?
This is hard to read. And I'm not sure if that's actually German. It reads like Escuchas, which sounds very Spanish to me. And we're gonna try and look that up in the meantime. In the meantime, let's look at Marvin Weber's
In the meantime, so Marvin's probably going to have a harder time.
I thought you were going to say a heart attack.
He might have... I can't read what the cards are, unfortunately. If he has some kaijus, he'd probably side them in, but I don't actually know. It looks like Twin Twister, which is probably not very helpful because his main problem is beating up the ships. Twin Twister doesn't help with that. And unfortunately, the rest of the cards, I can't really recognize the German. And the combination of the German and the handwriting.
The only card that I can find if I'm like searching for the names that I just entered is Michael the Arksworn Lightsworn.
It's probably not that.
It's probably not that, no. Okay, I'm not 100% sure what that is.
So interestingly for Lucien, he has chosen to side in the Torrential Tribute, which it does surprise me that. I mean, it will presumably surprise Marvin quite a lot if it gets flipped, but I don't really see what the purpose of... Because the Link monsters float, right? So if they die, the Ray comes back, and then Ray just turns itself into another Link monster.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really look like Lucien's actually got that much going for him in his hand at the moment. Torrential Tribute, Waking the Dragon. I mean, evenly matched can be quite threatening, can be quite a swing, but unfortunately for him, Marvin's actually not opened as explosively as he did last time.
For him, his
Unfortunately,
opponents...
that's what you want to see when you have the evenly matched, but now it's a fairly sort of tame summon one, set one, go to you, and, you know, his droll doesn't do anything, his evenly matched doesn't really do anything.
I feel like Marvin has some spies in the venue who are like feeding him information here. He knows exactly how to play around everything his opponent is throwing at him.
Waking the Dragon is definitely a card which is part of many, many mind games. A lot of people say how afraid they are of the card, and it's fair enough. Like, Waking the Dragon is one of those cards where you can just be playing your game normally and you think, oh, I'm going to win, let me just pop his back row and then attack the game, and then you're just like, oh, it's Waking the Dragon. Oh dear. What do I do now?
That's definitely what the British people are saying.
That's what British people say. I don't know what the Germans say.
It's a little bit less PG-13.
Yeah, but you know, Waking the Dragon can be a card if it's flipped. Well, if it's not flipped, but if it's triggered, that can just completely swing a game.
Right.
But it does this thing where you summon I think the target is presumably Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon. Yeah, that's in his extra deck, and that's a card where it doesn't really put that much pressure on the Sky Striker deck. They don't really mind it being there. It just means they can't damage them at all.
Right.
Oh goodness, that's an MST, and he's hit it.
Ooh, not bad. And you see Lucien looking at the camera.
He's just thinking, oh
he's
dear.
like, nah, this is not going my way.
Out comes the Ultimate Falcon, and now you're in the situation where you ask, can I actually kill this card? I mean, the answer is yes, they definitely can kill the card, but it may require them to get 20 spells in their graveyard and attack it with a Kagari, which might take too long.
Yeah, it didn't sound like a real option to me, but...
It is. I've seen it happen before, but the problem is that he's only got 25 minutes left. He can get ahead on life points, to be fair. So you can now attack with Hayate, get ahead on life points. So if they can't kill you and you can't kill them and you're ahead on life points, then you do win the game. However...
there was something else coming, I could tell.
Well, yeah, there is the fact that the Falcon will attack over some Link monsters and do some damage in the meantime, so I'm not sure you're going to be able to sustain a life point lead. So, I mean, honestly, I'm not sure A
card that has been mentioned is Boral Sword regarding the Falcon.
Boral Sword? Boral Sword does out it as well, that is a good point. Yeah, I was going to say, in a deck where people are going to be thinking of answers to your big ships that are really hard to destroy, and then you're just going to say, oh, how about I put in another card that's just really hard to destroy? A lot of the cards like Kaijus, which answer the big ship, also answers the Falcon very effectively, so it might be a bit of sort of overkill on that strategy of, what is it, protect the castle, some people call it. And yeah, as rightly pointed out, Boral Sword outs everything. Well, it doesn't out everything, but you know, it outs a lot of things.
Everything.
This is not Boral Load, this is Boral Sword. So the text on Boral Sword, when you attack a monster, it can halve the attack of the opponent's monster and gain half the attack of that monster. And it is not required. So Ultimate Falcon is unaffected by the effect of Boral Sword, but Boral Sword doesn't actually require the attack of the other monsters to go down.
Yeah. So he's still going to gain.
So it still gains enough attack just to kill it.
Question is only, does it gain enough?
Yes.
Like you said,
it does gain enough.
You need like 20... Oh, sorry, Boral Sword is
Boral Sword is a different card.
It's a lot faster than
Boral
Kagari.
Sword just kills it, yeah. So it goes up to 4,750.
That should be enough.
That should be enough, unless there's some trick that
just barely
Lucien has. I suppose he's got the Torrential Tribute. I don't know if Falcon is affected by your own card effects.
The Ultimate Falcon. Oh. Okay. Unaffected by other cards' effects. I can actually read that.
Aha.
I'm not sure I can read anything else, to be honest. I feel like I need glasses.
So in the case that the Boral Sword is summoned and then hit with Torrential Tribute, then that might convince Marvin to just concede if he gets out of Boral Lord and then it gets hit with Torrential. But because I think that might be his only out, other than the 20 Kagaris, which is probably not the 20 spell Kagari method.
It's not a real option.
I mean, it's one of those things like it's a real option in a friendly game or in a game that doesn't where you don't run out of time.
It's a real option in a friendly game. It's the nicest way I've ever heard of saying this is not a good idea.
Well, it's kind of that thing. You kind of in some universe, people play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh without running out of time, and you can just end the game normally. But in a tournament,
oh my! Now you started something. I'm gonna see like a lot of players that are like, I want to play in this alternate.
I want to
reality.
play in this alternate reality. Yeah.
Tom.
Maybe that was.
How do you get there? Is there like a way through the Shadow Realm?
I think it's in like one of the anime shows. I don't think they have time in the anime shows.
Yeah, no, I don't think they do. Yeah, they have infinite time. Sometimes one turn can take an entire episode.
Yeah, that is true, actually.
It's very different from...
it's not like, look, mate, this monologue definitely counts as slow playing.
Here is the torrential tribute. Look at that. The card where you weren't sure about if it's a good choice in this particular matchup. Lucien immediately, like, throwing his other monster away. He's like, yeah, I know what this does.
Oh, yeah, he's proccing the...
And Marvin is still in the... I'm not sure about this facial expression phase.
Yeah, I mean, it's doing something. It's just killing his ship so he can replace it with a different one. But it doesn't kill the Kagari because the Kagari is... I mean, realistically, it's not actually being that impactful. It doesn't destroy his Falcon.
Yeah.
Which is nice, because if it did, then it would be really terrible. But realistically, it's just traded his ship for another one, which then got negated by Widow Anchor, and then...
There's an MST.
That was kind of it. And that evenly matched, I suppose, wasn't going to do all that much anyway.
Well, 8 in MST. I would say that's like the best.
8 in MST, yeah. That was his best fate.
Yep. So, Marvin, it's back for him. He's got a Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, Sky Striker Ace Rye, and Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. And he just drew into yet another hand trap with Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring.
So do we know what's in Lucien's hand?
Yes, there's another Torrential Tribute according to our app.
It's in his hand?
Yes.
And not face down?
No.
Okay. So, yeah, it seems like, to me, that Marvin has enough material to assemble a Boral Sword here, if he wants to do it this turn, rather than just spend this turn gathering more resources.
But is it one of those situations where you want to do it as early as possible, or is it fair to wait a little bit longer?
Well, the thing is, if he makes Boral Sword, then the Slip Ride is still going to be there, and the Slip Ride is almost certainly going to get taken with a Widow Anchor and made into a Boral Sword, actually. So I'm assuming he'll just make the Boral Sword this turn, yeah.
Right.
I don't really see any reason why you should wait.
Let's see if we're going to see a downturn for your Fortune Teller's career.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm guessing that some combination of Hornet Drones and multi-roll on the field spell to get a Ray, and then Widow Anchor and or Shark Cannon to get more materials. So it does require quite a lot. They basically, like, all the monsters you're making, or anytime you're making a big Link monster with Sky Striker, they're normally actual monsters, as opposed to other decks which kind of try and cheat with their Link summoning. You know, they're like, oh, I'm going to say, summon a token or a Goki monster, which just gets me another Goki monster.
Right.
Whereas with Sky Striker,
is that actual
even though
cheating?
It's only a token, it's not like it's a token that could have been turned into a Sky Striker Link monster that could have done something quite good.
There's a lot of could haves in that sentence.
Could have, yeah. So he's going to fetch the drones here. So I don't know what Link 2 he's going to go up into first of all. Let's have a look at what he's got. So
again, it looks like Marvin does have a plan here.
He's moving fast enough that I think he's got a plan. So I think his plan is probably going to involve Widow Anchor, drones, and then multi-roll, and then Ray. He might even be able to win this turn, actually. So and the Anchor, yeah. So now he has enough monsters to... Well, he doesn't quite have enough monsters yet to make a Boral Sword, because Boral Sword requires all effect monsters, and the token is not an effect monster. However, once the token is linked with the Kagari for anything, then you can then turn that into a Boral Sword.
Now, I want to point out the effort that went into this token, because it seems like Marvin was actually dressed up like a proper young man and everything, not like somebody who just decided to instead of going to the beach, play cards, because that's how he usually looks. And he also brought his girlfriend to a tournament where these token pictures were taken. So
it looks like it was taken in front of the new Valkyrie card, but that might be wrong. That might just be coincidental. So yeah, I think this is going to get ranked up into a Boral Sword, and he's presumably then going to normal summon Ray, summon a second Ray, and we might experience a bit of deja vu as he attacks the game with Boral Sword and 2 copies of Ray, unless I have I don't actually know if it is Boral Sword and 2 Rays game over the Falcon. So it's going to do 1250 over the Falcon, I think. It'll go up to 4750. Yes, it'll do 1250 over the Falcon, and then 4750 direct, which is
Not enough.
sick. Yeah, but then he's going to have 2 copies of Ray.
Okay.
But he's not going to do that. I was wrong. Maybe he doesn't have 2 copies of Ray. What's in his hand?
There's 1 copy of
There's
Ray.
1 copy of Ray, and there is an Area 0. So I do think if he had used multi-roll on the copy of Area 0, I think he's still got another Ray in his deck. So I think he could have attacked for exact game, because the Boral Sword would have had 2 hits.
Did you consider the 9,000 life points?
Yeah, so the Boral Sword would attack for 4750. So for 1250 over the Falcon.
Right.
And then both Rays attack, that's 3,000. And then another 4750, I think is exactly 9,000 damage.
That would be so odd.
That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
Attacking for game through your opponent's Ultimate Falcon. But realistically, I don't think it's going to matter too much. I think he's still in quite a commanding position with his multiple cards in hand. You know, huge Link monster on the field.
Did Marvin just shuffle 2 cards and place them both face down again?
That is what multi-roll does.
Yeah, but like, it didn't seem like there was any strategy to it. I was just confused about that. All right, so...
Again, this Torrential might prove a nasty surprise. But he's already seen 1 copy of Torrential, so he kind of might know that it's there. And Boral Sword does just die to Torrential, I think. There's got nothing protecting it. Can't be destroyed by battle, but it can definitely be destroyed by Torrential.
So
Yeah.
Marvin Weber is forced to rebuild after that evenly matched. Now he
Then
needs
the
to
Torrential.
rebuild again, and there's a Torrential tribute.
I mean, again, it's quite cute, but I assume it's not going to matter.
He is shaking his head. I mean,
he is shaking his head because he can't do anything else very exciting this turn.
and
I suppose a
he's
top
forced
deck
to pass.
tin can might... Oh, no.
This
Yeah.
is how you do it, apparently. But no, there's
yeah.
the hand trap, of course. So Marvin is still in this. Marvin and Lucien is really animated. Lucien is really having the time of his life in this match here,
Well,
because
I
also
mean-
the audience is like with him at
So
the moment.
Marvin, the only way to restart his engine he's got is the Area 0, and the Area 0, it's like looking at the top 3 cards. It's a mini pot of duality. This has to hit. No, that's quite clever. I quite like that. So you can use Ogre on your own Area 0 to trigger Area 0. He could have done that last turn, I think. I don't know why he didn't. Yeah, you can trigger and then you get the effect of your Area 0 to summon a Ray, and then you kind of restart your engine again.
Now it
That's
looks really,
3,000
really good
damage.
for Marvin.
I think, yeah.
He's just going through the
Lucien's
motions
kind
here.
of hope was that Marvin didn't have any ways of
And
restarting
Lucien
his
again
engine.
looking at the support in the crowd. He wants to hear from them again to somehow come back, but no, Marvin seems like he's got this.
He does seem like he's got it. I mean, in theory, a drawn...
Still not 100%
a drawn
under
Tin
wraps.
Can... So he'd have to... If he drew Tin Can and Tin Can successfully got Dark Destroyer, then Marvin may be in the similar situation of not being able to kill it. But he's on more life points than his opponent now, so
Yeah.
any long, drawn-out battle would...
Although 14 minutes still on the clock.
14 minutes is quite a long
14
time.
is very, very long and very,
You
very
may
drawn out.
underestimate just how slowly the Sky Striker deck does damage.
No, it's not that slow. Come on. All right, let's see it. Let's see what happens with the Destiny draw for Lucien Hauer.
It's
Yeah,
terraforming.
okay.
I can't remember what Cosmo monsters are banished, if any.
Cosmo Landwalker is banished.
Cosmo Landwalker is banished, so Cosmo Landwalker can be added back. That's probably the best draw in his deck, actually, because it just draws him another card. It gets him a Cosmo Town for free and then draws him another card. So
that's-
what else do you want?
So far, so good
But I
for
mean,
him.
he does need another kind of specific card here, and that is not the specific card.
We don't know yet what he drew into.
It was a Ghost Ogre.
Ah,
You
okay.
need to work on that one. It's
No, I
get the
didn't.
eagle eyes.
My problem is I'm looking at the app and then I'm looking at the screen again and I'm looking at the app again, and with my shifty eyes, it's not working so well for me.
Now you can see it. I know.
Yeah.
It's a very nice Ghost Ogre. It looks like an ultimate rare Ghost Ogre.
Yeah, that's one of those important details.
That is very important. I mean, I'm not really very good with rarities.
Well, I was very
But
impressed
I
with
can
his Monster
see-
Reborn, to be honest.
Is Monster Reborn? Oh, it's that new art.
The Japanese art, or original Japanese art. Now we got it too. Otherwise, that card wouldn't be legal, of course. All right. So Marvin is sitting in a pretty good position.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
At this point, he's his own worst enemy. It seems like only he can defeat himself here.
Yeah, so now he's, there's kind of like, you can't even have weird, grindy loss. So there is one way of beating the Sky Striker deck, which is that they run out of Link monsters. It's a bit like Necros, where they had 6 ritual spells. That meant they could summon 6 monsters in the game, and if they ran out, then they ran out, and that was kind of it.
But didn't that happen more often than not at the kitchen table rather than in the tournament?
I don't really remember. That happening very often, so you might be right. But it's similar with Sky Strikers that you can run out of Link monsters, but then the base, the equip spell, shuffles 3 back when it's sent to the graveyard. So if you're running that card in your deck, then you're kind of saying, well, it's more for the mirror match, I would say, where you're likely to... it's almost like is your entire deck going to run out of resources, not just your hand, but your entire deck. And that card says, no, it's not.
No, it's not. Sometimes that is all a card needs to do. Just say no, it's
shuffle
not.
back. It's kind of like if Pot of Avarice. Well, it's kind of like a much worse version of Pot of Avarice because it doesn't draw you 2 cards as well.
It's okay. I think.
Although it does draw you 2 cards if you use its other effect.
See, there you go. At this point in time, Marvin is happy with every little draw, and funnily enough, every time it's his turn, the audience is entirely quiet. Nobody wants to say anything, and if Lucien is. Basically, is sitting in the driver's seat, draws a good card. Suddenly, everybody's like, "Woo!"
So he's chosen to shuffle back the Ray. So this area 0 can now pick up another copy of Ray. So maybe he has got a plan for how to kill his opponent because he's using quite a lot of cards.
Yes.
His opponent is on 3,650. So I'm assuming this is enough to attack for game actually, because there's quite a lot of spells in his grave at this point, and the question of whether there are 12, I think he needs. No, not 12.
Well, we got quite a few.
There needs to be
1, 2,
more
3,
than 12,
5.
in fact.
Oh, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, he's
4,
ogred it. Okay, yeah,
5,
that's the game, I think.
6.
Yeah, there needs to be 7, and I'm pretty sure there's more than 7 at this point.
There are definitely more than 7.
Lucien agrees.
And that actually means that Marvin Weber, the person that sat down and said, congratulations, you won this round, ended up doing the exact opposite thing. And he beat Lucien Hauer, shaking his head. He cannot quite believe
psychology.
it. Yeah. So let's talk about it in the post-match analysis. So guys, we don't want to send you the wrong idea. There were actually quite a few people cheering for Marvin Weber. He's one of the most popular Germans at these international tournaments. He's also made a couple of trips to other countries, so people know him, not just locally. He's made a few friends over the years, and he's always nice to talk to, and that just paid out because there were a couple of people who were really happy for him that he got the win, despite playing the obvious elephant in the room with that Sky Striker pure deck.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the elephant. I think everyone's talking about it.
Yeah, but that is the elephant in the room.
No, the elephant in the room is the thing that no one talks about.
Nah.
Yeah, no, that is what it means.
If there would be an elephant in this room...
It's the really obvious thing that no one talks about.
If there was an elephant in this room, everybody would be talking about it.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't be an elephant in the room anymore.
Okay.
People would be able to talk. You don't talk about the elephant in the room.
I do. That's all we do, actually. That is our job description. Talk about the elephant in the room for the entire day. All right, guys. So you did see that Cosmo, in theory, should be an excellent choice for this weekend.
Well, I think the idea of getting out big ships is cool. They're like, oh, I get out my big ship and now you can't kill it. But there were 2 games where he did not manage to get out a single big ship.
Yeah, and it wasn't so much that his opponent prevented him from doing it.
He did a little bit, so if the farm girl had successfully connected with the attack, then
that would have been an opening.
Got out a big ship.
Right.
And I think that's basically it. So he tried, but
it wasn't
not
like
very
he
hard.
had 2 million options to do this, and every single time...
if it's going to be stopped by the fact that your 1500 monster couldn't attack directly and resolve its effect, then I would say, yeah, your deck's probably not doing all that. You could probably be disappointed.
If that was a thing, draws. Gladiator Beast would still be a thing.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say the payoff for attacking directly with a farm girl is a little bigger.
Tiny bit.
Tiny bit. Then you're summoning another Gladiator Beast and, I don't know, popping a back row.
See, now I'm never going to hear the end of this one again, because Umar always thinks that I should come to a tournament and play Gladiator Beast. He's like, oh, you mentioned the name again, so now you need to go for it.
Gladiator Beast have got some new cards at some point.
They're going to get good again.
Do you remember when Prisma Test Tiger
sorry,
into
I
Gazaris
need to do my
amazing?
transition now. I need to do my transition.
Okay.
If you want to have Gladiator Gladiator Beasts Be Good Again,
Oh, I see.
you have to write a message or a postcard or a Facebook message to Matthew Bell, who's
Ask
now
him
going to talk about this
design some Gladiator Beasts.
with our friend Luke Withington. Let's take it to our Konami employees on the other side of the stage.
Thank you, Ollie. Yeah, I'm always a big fan of postcards, especially when they say hi on them. It's my favorite ones.
It's not how we make Gladiator Beasts. I'm just saying, straight out, that's not going to happen.
Well, what would they have to send us?
I am not going to talk about that.
Okay. Send me postcards. Okay.
So yeah,
How was the game?
that was kind of a sad game to watch in some senses because Lucien's deck never really got a chance to do what it was supposed to. As we saw, no big ship, no Dark Destroyer, and everyone's like, yes, and you could tell there was a bit of cheering going on in the crowd.
Yeah,
there was
absolutely.
definitely a favourite there.
Yeah.
The farm girl not getting it shot through, I mean, that would have been the dream had it landed, but obviously Widow Anchor being a big problem. There were a couple of incredible moments in this game. It's like we had the game 2, the Waking the Dragon getting destroyed.
Yes, that was epic.
On a 50% chance, and then going, oh yeah, I've got Ultimate Falcon, and he had a Eternal Tribute to back it up as well, so that Boral Sword Dragon wouldn't have been able to clear it, but he was forced. He decided to use the Eternal Tribute more aggressively when he thought he was in a position to win the game. Yeah, didn't pan out for him when he went when his opponent had another Widow Anchor.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it went up to Boral Sword, and then another Torrential Tribute went off. It was a lot of exciting stuff. Then Marvin had the excellent play with his field spell on the Ghost Ogre, so we could get top of an array. And eventually we had the Can We Save Our Lives terraforming, and it just didn't work out. That's unfortunately Lucien taking a loss there.
That would have been mint if he'd have drawn the tin can mint off that Cosmotown.
Yeah, that would have been great.
It would have been mint.
Nothing. It's just very our viewership isn't entirely British, so I'm not sure how many people are going to get mint.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
He's saying it's excellent.
It would have been very excellent. Is that more British?
I'd rather just say mint.
Okay.
It would have been wicked, but it didn't work out.
No, it didn't.
Which is unfortunate, but we see Sky Strikers definitely putting up a performance. A lot of the high level players currently we see in the standings are on Sky Striker this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's starting to shape up to be the choice for the weekend.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how the format grows from that, right? Because that's exactly kind of where we were before when everyone was on Trickstar Sky Striker. Yeah. And then the format evolved into, actually, it should have been Goki. Yeah, and then Altergeist got in around there. It's like, you're playing Goki, you say, and then they show up. Yeah, exactly. No, it's always interesting to see how a format develops and moves from, especially this is such a young format. They've all 1 week old today.
Yeah, the players have only had
not
1
today,
week.
But
Yeah, so that's super interesting. Well, so to keep the super interesting in mind, we're going to be right back with the next feature match. See you guys soon.